Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Hello and welcome to the Think Factory podcast, where we speak with leading industry professionals and hear more about their experiences, insights, and strategies. All of that helps empower our listeners and elevates their own businesses, accelerates their career growth, and shows them how to be more impactful business leaders. My name is Susan Kleiner. I'm a partner with Outside General Counsel Solutions, and I'm the host of today's episode. I am so happy to have here with me today Amy Kritzer Becker. She's the founder of the Jewish cooking blog, What Do You Want to Eat?, author of Sweet Noshings, and president of Modern Tribe, a contemporary online Jewish gift stores. She whips up classic Jewish recipes with a modern twist. As a trained chef, she teaches cooking class and does cooking demos. Her recipes have been featured all over, including the Today Show, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and her business, Modern Tribe, which she runs with her brother Andrew, is the source for Judaica gifts and modern design aesthetics. So I am so happy to have you here with me today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I know that you've had kind of an interesting path to being a business owner. I'd love to hear some more about Modern Tribe and how that came about.
Yeah, if you had asked me growing up if I thought I'd own a Jewish business, I probably would have laughed at you. I grew up very culturally Jewish, but definitely didn't think of it as large a part of my life as it now is. And my business actually started with my blog. So kind of long story short, yeah. So I have my food blog, What Do You Want to Eat was first. And then my brother and I bought Modern Tribe from another owner, about 5 or 6 years after I started my blog. Even with the blog, I started it just as a hobby. This was 2010. People weren't really making careers out of blogging. I don't think most people were making money. So it was a creative outlet for me to do when I was at my corporate job and I was a little bored. I had moved from New York City, a very creative job, to Austin, Texas, a less creative job. And I found I needed a creative outlet. And starting in college, when I went to college far from my family, I started hosting Jewish holidays, and it became more important to me, being Jewish mostly through food, which is a big part of being Jewish. So when I decided to start my own blog, initially I was going to do a cupcake blog. This was 2010. Cupcakes were peak, dessert in fashion. But my brother, who's always been more business focused, he said, you're going to get tired of that. You're not going to want to do cupcakes forever. What if you did Jewish food? And to me, growing up in a very Jewish area, that was just food. Like, you had bagels on Sundays, knishes. I grew up, very Ashkenazi, Eastern European Jewish. So those were like just normal foods for me. But then he said, ask your friends in Texas if they know, what kugel is. And no one did. So I said, okay, this is fun. I can share my recipes that I grew up with a new audience and connect to some people, and gives me something to do when I'm bored at work. So that's kind of how it started. And long story short, I fell in love with it. My readership grew. I entered a small business contest with Daily Candy, which doesn't exist anymore. But at the time, they were like the Oprah. They told you to buy something and you bought it. So I was one of the finalists there. And although I guess, I don't know, is Oprah even Oprah anymore? I don't know. So there's probably a new Oprah. But so anyway, so I was a finalist. I got a lot of press from that. And my blog just continued to grow, and new opportunities came my way. Different publications were like, we'll promote the contest if you share recipes with us. So I just said yes to that. And, eventually I grew my blog into a business. At the same time, I was a private chef and teaching cooking classes, also selling jello shots at a bar. I was doing wearing many hats. And then the opportunity to buy Modern Tribe came along. I knew about Modern Tribe just through Jewish geography. And it seemed like the perfect complement to my blog. Even at the time, I wasn't trying to be an influencer. This was kind of before, influencers were influencers. And I just knew that life wasn't for me, just sharing my whole life online and, finding sponsored opportunities all the time. So this seemed like a little more of a long-term business plan for me to have this Judaica store with these cool products that go along with my recipes that are kind of modern and fun too. And, I think a lot of being Jewish, especially right now, is very serious. And I'm trying to it's fun. That's why. Isn't that what it's all about, really? have a little fun.
Yeah, well, you certainly connect to, I mean, it's interesting. So you talked about how you got your initial recipes from your grandmother, and then you made changes to, add more flair. I feel funny saying flair. That's like a funny word. It makes me think of that old movie with flare buttons. But you added your own flair.
Oh,
You
yeah.
added your own point to it. How long? So you started that in 2010, right?
Yes.
How long before you were able to quit your corporate job?
Well, so I guess I kind of cheated at that a little bit. Well, first of all, part of I didn't just change my grandma's recipes, so I call her my bubby, just to change them. They were like not real. They were not recipes. They were chicken scratch on a note card, and it was like cook the brisket till it's done. I'm like, what does that mean? And then I'm not one to follow recipes exactly anyway. So between talking to her and like adding in my own, kind of twists and turns here, that's kind of how the recipes evolved to become my own. But so I quickly fell in love with blogging. But I didn't make any money doing it there. I think I added ads at one point, but sponsored posts weren't even quite a thing yet. I was doing mostly like private chef work on the side, and I quit my job to go to culinary school. So that was kind of cheating. So I was like, all right, my parents will absolutely disown me if I just quit my job to do this blog and then work at a bar selling jello shots. But if I get more schooling, no Jewish parents are mad about going back to school. So, I saved up some money. I paid for the culinary school was 1 year intensive program. And then while it was a really like intense year. I was working in school. I was going to school 4 hours a day. I was teaching cooking classes and doing demos at a supermarket. Then I was working at the bar one night a week, which actually like made more money than like anything else I was doing. And then I was building up the blog. So I was like getting more sponsored content, getting more freelance writing. That's kind of how I started making money. So that by the time I was done with school, and eventually I was able to quit the supermarket and the bar and just do the blogging. So it's kind of like evolving, but I kind of quit first before I was making money. So
you went to school. You went to school.
Yeah, I was schooling, but it was much harder than to, I think people, brands weren't paying as often, or they didn't quite understand like why they would. And they're like, I'll just send you some soup and you can post about the soup. I'm like, well, I'm posting it to my thousands of people that are going to buy it. So this is like an ad, right? Like, so it was not quite the time it is today, where I think people are starting maybe TikTok accounts with the intention of being rich and famous.
Oh yeah, very different. But
it was a simpler time though. People were doing it because they loved it, so everyone just like loved food, and it was a nice tight knit community of people that just love cooking and food. So it was a nice time too.
So you were an early adopter of you were way ahead of the game. And when I hear about people talk about blogs, like even blogs are going back a ways.
I know.
Right?
I still say like blogger, and I'm like, all right, people like most people don't even have a blog anymore, so I don't like that. I guess.
Yeah. So what did you go? You did your undergrad at Emory, is that right?
I did. Yeah.
And what did you study at Emory?
So that was I also switched majors a bunch of times. I did not know what I wanted to do. I ended up in the business school, mostly because my roommate was in the business school and they didn't have classes on Fridays. And the earliest class was 10 a.m. And then they also had kegs in the courtyard every Thursday. So that was kind of what I was like, oh, that sounds like a good major. And then I actually ended up really loving business school. And I think it was a good major for me. I did marketing and international business. And then after I graduated, I moved to New York. I briefly did sales at a hotel, and then I did conference production. So I started as an assistant, and then I moved up to being a producer, which was planning the content for marketing conferences, which is just like, and then traveling and running these conferences in person. So it was a really fun job. And honestly, if it wasn't for the recession that hit in 2007, I probably would still be doing it. But people weren't going to marketing conferences at that point. Their company wasn't paying a few grand for them to learn how to market when they were just getting laid off instead. So that was what motivated me to change careers at that point. But it was before that, it was a really fun job.
It's just so interesting to look back and see how all these, all these problems that come in our path, and big changes and recession and all this other stuff, like you wouldn't be where you are today without having gone through it. And
no, it's crazy. Yeah.
And who would have guessed, when you graduated from Emory, that you would be running a business with your brother and have enjoyed such great success, with your cooking and your cooking blog.
Well, I think a cool thing too is like when I was in college, I don't think blogs existed yet, or at least Facebook didn't exist when I was in college. So, at least it wasn't the extent. Facebook started my senior year, and they only let in certain schools. So like, I really couldn't have even dreamed of this job because it didn't exist yet, which I think is kind of something interesting to think about today. I've tried to like mentor some students and they're so stressed about their future. And I'm like, your job might not even exist yet. You know, I don't know. Or AI is just going to do your job and you won't have a job anyway. But I don't tell them that. That's not a good thing to say.
Yeah, that's not very nice.
All right, so then, but it's, you know, like I didn't know I was going to do this job because it like didn't really exist yet.
Right. Okay. So then, so you got the blog, you turned it into a business, and then you decided to buy this business with your brother. And, you know, having a small business has its own challenges. Having a small business with family can be very challenging. But it sounds like it's also been super rewarding for you.
Yeah, I love it. It's really become my passion. I definitely work more on Modern Tribe than on what you want to eat these days. Like I still love to like I used to do a new recipe every week. Now I do a new recipe like maybe every major holiday. And I'll do sponsored content if it's the perfect fit, but I don't just take on anything. And I have a 2-year-old, my time is very valuable. So, I'm like, all right, I could make a video about toilet paper, or I could just spend time with my family. So, but my brother and I have always been close. At the time, I wasn't really concerned with like owning a business with him, but looking back, I'm like, oh, that could have been bad. But I think the good thing is we have complementary skills, so we trust each other to do what we're good at. So he's more of like the data analytics and kind of more of the technical side of things, and I'm more of the creative. I do all the purchasing and the social media and the marketing. And then we built, we have a team now for doing customer service, and which neither of us are good at. So, that's the hard part. So I think we just trust each other to do what we're good at. And if I think the nice thing about working with a sibling, like if you're working with someone else who's not your sibling and they mess up, you kind of said, you're like, oh, maybe next time you could do this way. With your sibling, you're so honest. You're like, bro, like, what are you doing? Don't do that. And he's like, okay, sorry, my bad. And then we're like, we're done. And then we're like, all right, let's get lunch next week. Then we like move on. But like, I'm like, you're an idiot. He's like, you're an idiot. I'm like, I love you. Bye. So I think you can be really honest and just like things get done. You don't have to beat around the bush or, kind of try to be PC. You're just like your sibling relationship,
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Honestly, we really don't disagree much. Like usually we just handle our own tasks and it goes well.
Yeah, it sounds like you kind of stay in your own lane. Well, exactly. I wanted to give a shout out to moderntribe.com because it does such a fantastic job of occasions and types of gifts and more gifts. It is fantastic. I think that there is zero excuse for somebody to say, I have no idea, what to get. Like some of your categories are so great. You have, obviously you have bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, Bubby's favorites, but you have camp care packages, corporate gifts for the home, hostess gifts, new home gifts, love gifts, pet gifts, retirement gifts. Yeah, just
Jewish dog toys are some of our most popular products.
I just love how you laid it out. So for anybody listening, they don't know what to get. Just you go to Modern Tribe and they'll tell you. It's right there.
I think one of the fun things, people are always like, oh, aren't you concerned about, those large corporate e-commerce businesses? And I'm like, not really, because most of our stuff isn't available on like just average stores, and you don't know to search for it. You wouldn't know to search for bagel earrings, like we're showing it to you, but you wouldn't even know to look for that otherwise. Like it's not something you would have thought of. So that's what I do all the purchasing, which is like one of my favorite things to do, and find new products. And we work with a lot of smaller artists, and maybe this is their side hustle and they're into the craft and not into the marketing. So that's kind of where we come into, that they can just focus on that. And then we've been, one of my goals is to design more of our own products, which we've been doing the last few years as well. So those are both some of my favorite things, are working with other Jewish artists and then designing my own products too.
Yeah, it's got to feel good to help, really promote some of these passionate artists.
Yeah.
and help those people get out there, because it's hard doing a million different things. I'm definitely, as soon as this is over, I'm buying bagel earrings for sure.
I think we have 2 different types of bagel earrings on the site right now, actually. So
I'm doing it. Like definitely buying bagel earrings. And I'll also shout out that I did see you have the best matzah blanket I have ever seen. So
thank you. That's actually, I don't know when this is going to air, but it's on sale right now. So
oh, good to know. All right. So I wanted to know, I mean, if you could and I think we've already heard some of this from you, but what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think, I kind of mentioned something that I was good at, but I would even encourage myself to do more is I just said yes to everything, even if I didn't think I was qualified. Cause like really like most people aren't qualified, especially when like this, blogging and influencing was first starting, like no one was doing it. So how do you know if you're good at it if no one had ever done it before? So, I started saying yes to people to ask me to do recipe development. And I'm like, yeah, I can do recipes for your brand, for your packaging, for your website. And then they asked to do videos, and I'd never done videos before. But I'm like, I can learn that. I can teach myself how to edit a quick video. And so I kind of said yes to things and then figured it out as I went along. And I think that worked for me. The part that I got more hung up on, especially like I restarted my career. I went to culinary school at age, was I 28, I think. And a lot of my culinary school was an interesting mix of like high school graduates to people who are retired. So we'd go out sometimes, and they're like, "How does this 18-year-old, 30-year-old, and 60-year-old know each other?" And like it seems like a weird, like, is this a family? This is weird. So I loved it. It was like a really eclectic mix of people. But I think it's a little intimidating when your friends are getting married and like moving up in their career, and I'm like working at a bar selling jello shots, like restarting my career, and not. I think when I was starting my blog, I just like got out of a relationship too, which is a really hard thing. I think that's like one of the hardest time periods is like your late 20s to early 30s. It's just like a real big change of some of your friends are married with kids and like have successful careers, and some are like acting like they're in college. It's like a real difference versus like in your 40s or older. I found that's like one of the hardest transitions. And even getting out of college, at least most of your friends are on the same playing field in terms of just starting out in their career and not getting married yet. So anyway, that was kind of hard, I think, at the time. But then looking back, it all worked out. I did get a great career, and I did end up getting married and having a child just like a little later than I think I thought initially. But it was totally worth it. I'm glad I'm still not working the corporate job that I didn't love, and so just kind of just trusting the process, I guess, a little bit.
You trust the process,
not worrying about your timeline. That it's kind of all made up anyway.
Yeah, no, I hear all these things in what you're saying, like imposter syndrome and don't compare yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Definitely. When I was starting, everyone kind of was blogging for fun, and I think it wasn't as competitive as it is now. But I still kind of just like, we can all, and people like steal my recipes. Like I do a recipe, it's never been done before, and then I see someone else post it. I'm like, they probably Googled it and saw mine. But I'm like, you know what, who cares? Like they can't get in my brain. I have more ideas. It doesn't do any help to dwell on it. And I think there's room for everyone to succeed, which I think kind of helps you not be mad or worry about what's going on with other people. Like you can all do well. So that's good.
I feel like as an attorney, I should say, no, it's not okay that someone stole your stuff.
And that's annoying, but yeah. And I'm like, think of your own idea. Like,
no, well, I'm like that.
Legally, it's actually fine. Like they don't copy it word for word. Like legally, it's fine. But just be like, I was inspired by this recipe. And no one's gonna care. Like
a little shout out.
I don't know. So
well,
that's not hard. But
so what do you have coming up that you're looking forward to?
Well, as we talk, it's almost Passover, but I'm already thinking of Hanukkah. We honestly start planning things like as soon as Hanukkah ends, I'm planning next Hanukkah, especially in terms of designing products. So sometimes I like forget what, like in my head, I was like, is it fall? I'm like, no, it's not even summer yet. You kind of like forget what time of year it is. So I've been working on some new Hanukkah pajamas and 2 new menorahs for next year. So the design process is fun, but it's very time consuming, and you have to get different samples, and for the menorahs, like make sure the candles fit and make sure it's you want the candles like lined up except for the leader, the shamash candle. So there's always like little things that you think it's fine, then you get the sample and you're like, oh no, not fine. So it takes time. And then same with the pajamas, like working on a new design. I think there's more and more Hanukkah pajamas out there, but like very few of them are designed by Jewish people. And like I would say like half of them have major errors on them, which is funny. I talk with one of the artists we work with, is Midrash Manicures. She's a rabbi that designs her own products too. And one of her favorite things is to like make videos of all like the errors in products, and they're just so ridiculous. And I'm always like, to my vendors, I'm like, just ask me, like I'll for free, I will tell you that dreidel is backwards and you shouldn't print it. But they don't. Maybe like 2 of them did, and I and I was like, this is wrong. So and I think the styles get a little stale too, because if you're not in it, you're like, you only know so many ideas. So our pajamas this year are going to be like all different types of menorahs, and I feel like menorahs on Hanukkah pajamas or Hanukkah products all kind of look like a traditional one, and ours are going to be like super fun and kind of wacky this year. So I'm excited for that. I think it's very like, it's hard to find Hanukkah products that are stylish but also like unique. I think they all start to look the same because people who aren't Jewish like don't know how to get creative with it. They're barely even being accurate with it, So like accuracy first and then creativity. So if you're not even hitting the first part, then you're not ready for the second part, I guess.
Well, that makes sense. Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. Like I could wear Hanukkah pajamas with bagel earrings. So.
Exactly. I wear Hanukkah pajamas all year, so it's definitely not limited to the holiday season.
Well, that sounds great. So where can people find you?
So my website's whatjewwannaeat.com, moderntribe.com. I'm all over social media, Instagram, TikTok. Modern Tribe is Modern Tribe _Jew. Someone has the Modern Tribe one, but that's okay. They don't use it even. Yeah, that's mostly where I am.
See now, so when I called out your website before, I did not give the right information, so I apologize for that.
Oh, I missed it then.
So I wanted to ask you, it's something that we ask all of our guests on the Think Factory podcast, which is, what keeps you up at night?
I think even though like I have a larger team now, and we've grown Modern Tribe, and to a place where I can think about more big picture ideas, I still like worry about like, which I think is probably a good thing, about like the individual orders, and like, I give my email address to customers. So sometimes customers will email me and they're like, I got this and it's broken. And I don't know, it makes me like so infuriated for them. So I think I worry about our customers, and I would say like 99.9% of the time, like orders are perfect and customers are happy. But when someone's not happy, I worry about it. So even though I have people to help me with that now, but it's still like hard to separate from that. And that's why I take customer service personally, because I like really dwell on things. So I'm like, someone else please help.
So you're delegating that. No, but it's your name.
If someone emails me, I reply, but someone is doing most of the customer service. So.
Well, I get it. I mean, like your brand and your
brand
and your business, it's all you.
So, yeah, that's true. I don't think it's a bad thing, but yeah. So.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I'm Susan Kleiner, and on behalf of our entire team at OGC Solutions and the Think Factory, we want to thank you for listening to today's episode. Be sure to check out our other Think Factory podcasts, where my colleagues talk to business leaders about industry trends and issues. Thanks so much for being here with us today.